In the 1960s and even earlier, there was a marriage custom in northeast China where a woman could marry two men at the same time. The first husband was the original wife, and the second husband was the helper. The three of them lived together in one family and took care of each other. This was the famous Labangtao in the history of northeast marriage customs. In the era of material shortage, ordinary families could only barely survive. Some families were unable to support the elderly and take care of their wives and daughters because their husbands were ill and lost their ability to work. After obtaining the consent of their husbands, the women would find another honest and kind man to live with. After the husband died, they could marry this man and continue to live together. This marriage custom, which is similar to the helper when a horse pulls a cart, is an extension of the original meaning of Labangtao. At the foot of a mountain in northeast China, there is a small village called Feng'ao village. It is called Feng'ao village, but it is actually very poor and lives on a small piece of land. But I don't know if it is because of the soil and water, but the women here are beautiful, and even if they are a little older, they are still attractive, and they can always attract people from other villages to ask for wives. Some people are single, so they just wait in the cornfield, waiting for others to do shameful things, and then go up to catch them in the act. If someone is caught, he can only use his body to silence others, otherwise others will gossip about him, and he will not be able to live. Although there are many interesting things in this village, they are inseparable from love. People have 7 emotions and 6 desires, but sometimes love can change the fate of a person or a family. The name of Feng'ao village has a great origin. The black soil in the village will grow a kind of wild sweet potato, also called sweet potato, which is larger than ordinary ones, and tastes sweet and full. Because of this food, even in remote mountain villages where there is no road, hundreds of families can survive. But they can survive, but life is boring. When there was no electricity, the villagers had to go to bed early, and the only entertainment was the things between men and women on the kang. Even so, the villagers had desires and emotions, and there was no shortage of emotional entanglements. Because of poverty, the ratio of men to women in the village was unbalanced, with more men than women, which gave rise to the custom of pulling gangs. If a man in a family is sick and can't work to support the family, the woman and children can only ask the strong bachelors in the village to help their family work in order to survive. In exchange, being a helper is equivalent to having a wife, which is equivalent to 2 men working with 1 woman. When a woman gives birth to 2 children, one is considered her man's and the other is the helper's. However, the end of the helper is not very good. Many people will be driven out when they are old and have no strength, and live a miserable life without anyone to take care of them. Unless the conditions are particularly poor, no one will help others. Of course, there is an exception. Unless the woman is very beautiful, the man may help her if he is greedy for her beauty. The wife of Yao Xiaozi at the entrance of the village is a beautiful woman named Chen Suihua. It is said that she was abducted to the village, and has read a little. When she first got married, Chen Suihua cried, made a fuss, and even hanged herself, but soon she had a child, and with the people around her watching closely, she accepted her fate. The next year, Chen Suihua gave birth to a fat boy, who was more energetic. Although there were few women in the village, they generally favored boys over girls. When Yao Xiaozi saw that a boy was born, he was so happy that he couldn't sleep all night. A smile appeared on his old face, and the house was filled with the crying and laughter of children. Chen Suihua didn't want her son to be called Gaodan or something like that, so she gave her son an elegant name, Chen Fei, meaning that she hoped he could fly out of this mountain valley in the future. Everyone in the village called him by his nickname, Feizi. When Feizi was 10 years old, his father, who was in his 40s, had lung disease because of working in the mine in his early years. He didn't get well at home, but his condition got worse, and he would cough up blood from time to time. Yao Xiaozi felt that he would not live long, so he worried about his wife Chen Suihua. After all, she couldn't do heavy work, and his son was young and couldn't help much. After thinking about it, he finally made a decision and told Chen Suihua about his plan to find a gang. Chen Suihua disagreed at first. After all, if you marry a chicken, you follow the chicken, if you marry a dog, you follow the dog. After having a baby, she would not think too much. But she could not resist Yao Xiaozi's persuasion, and she was not good at farm work. Other people's fields grew crops, but her own fields grew weeds. Every time others saw it, they shook their heads, and she was even more discouraged. If she continued like this, she would not earn enough work points, and it would be hard to get through the winter. So, Chen Suihua finally decided to find a partner. The two of them selected a group, and finally Xiaozi made the final decision and chose Wang Yi, a bachelor in the village. Wang Yi was tall and strong, but he lost his parents when he was young and lived in his second aunt's house. Because he was poor and no woman liked him, he had to live alone. Yao Xiaozi chose him mainly because he thought he was broad-minded and well-behaved, and he had a good heart, and would not be bad to his son. Chen Suihua did not say anything, so she found the village party secretary to discuss it, and the village party secretary came forward. Coincidentally, Wang Yi had already had a secret crush on Chen Suihua, so the matter went smoothly. The two families reached an agreement. Yao Xiaozi and his wife went to Wang Yi's house to pick up the luggage, and took him to their own kang. Wang Yi was about the same age as Chen Suihua, and had long been secretly in love with Chen Suihua's beauty. As soon as the village party secretary made the first move, Wang Yi agreed. The two families became one family, and slept on the same kang. The kangs in rural areas of northeast China are large and long. Originally, there were two kangs in the north and south, but in order to save firewood, they only had one kang. It was not very convenient for two grown men, a child and a woman to squeeze together to do things. As soon as Wang Yi came, he worked from dawn to dusk and never complained of being tired. He could do the work of 3 people. Yao Xiaozi and Chen Suihua were happy to see them. Now they didn't have to worry about food, clothing and daily necessities. Yao Xiaozi, with his hands behind his back and a pipe in his mouth, said to Chen Suihua, "I think even a mule can't beat him. What do you think? It's right to listen to me, right? Look at how you show off." Chen Suihua gave him a white face, with a satisfied smile on her face. It was fine during the day, but life became difficult at night. According to custom, the gangsters had to sleep with the hostess. When it got dark, Wang Yi was still a little shy and stood at the door, not daring to go in. Chen Suihua seemed generous. After preparing the meal, she lifted the door curtain and said gently, "Brother Wang Yi, come in for dinner. The pork vermicelli I made is delicious." Looking at Chen Suihua's beautiful face and her peachy expression, Wang Yi's mind had already flown into the house. He smiled and said, "Sister-in-law, I'll be here right away." The custom in the village is to eat on the kang. Wang Yi washed his hands and went into the house. He saw that a small table had been placed on the kang. Although it was old, it was polished very brightly. A coarse porcelain basin was placed on the kang, which contained fragrant pork vermicelli. There was also a pile of pancakes in the big bowl next to it, which exuded an attractive aroma. That's not all. There were also 2 green onions and sweet sauce. There was also a special requirement for these green onions. According to convention, only men could eat them. Pudding 1 meant there was a male owner, and pudding 2 meant there were 2 male owners. This is the arrangement of 2 husbands serving 1 woman. Yao Xiaozi knocked his pipe on the edge of the kang, coughed for a long time before he recovered, and said, "Brother Wang Yi, come and sit here. I want to tell you my heart." Yao Xiaozi's expression was very complicated when he spoke. "Okay." Wang Yi smiled and put on his slippers and got on the kang, sitting next to Chen Suihua. Chen Suihua's body radiated a fragrance. Wang Yi sniffed it hard with his nose, and immediately felt ecstatic. He was in his 30s, but he had never been with a woman. Sitting next to Chen Suehua, when Chen Suehua got up to help him get the cake, her chest touched Wang Yi's arm, and Wang Yi suddenly felt a burning sensation that went straight to his lower abdomen. Brother is like this. I ask you to take care of Suehua and Feizi in the future. You have to treat them well, don't beat or scold him, you two will consummate your marriage today. Yao Xiaozi coughed violently for a while again, and Wang Yi hurriedly patted his back. Brother, what are you talking about? How can I do that? I just want to help you support the family, and I will leave when you are well. Brother, I was right about you. You are a good person, but this is the rule. I cannot break the rule, let alone let you work in vain. Let's just leave it at that. I got this disease in the mine, and it will never be cured. The meal ended in silence. Wang Yi got off the table when he was 8/10 full, and sat outside under the apple tree. He took a branch and drew on the ground. All he drew were the images of Suehua. When the sky was full of stars and the lights in the house were turned off, Suehua came out of the house and walked to his side. It's late, go to bed. Where are they? Wang Yi asked. They are all asleep. So he followed Suehua back to the house obediently. A thick floral quilt had been spread on the kang. Suehua went up first and lifted a corner of the quilt. She said, "Come in," and then she unbuttoned her clothes. This was a special order from Yao Xiaozi. She had to sleep with Wang Yi in order to make Wang Yi devoted to this family. For the sake of this family, Suehua also agreed. Besides, Wang Yi is not ugly, he is strong, usually treats her well, has a good temper, and there is nothing to complain about him. Suehua secretly watched him work from behind, during the day, and found that she still had a little affection for him. Suehua glanced at Wang Yi shyly, slowly took off her clothes, and suddenly a plump body appeared in front of Wang Yi. Her body was whiter than snow, stimulating Wang Yi's nerves all the time. Wang Yi was stunned and stood on the ground at a loss, but his eyes could not leave Suehua for a moment. He could only swallow his saliva desperately, and the heat burned from his feet to his head. Sister-in-law, what are you doing? Wang Yi stuttered. Suehua's face was as red as an apple. She turned off the kerosene lamp, took off her clothes quickly, hid in the quilt, left an empty space for Wang Yi, and whispered, "Brother Wang Yi, come on." Just now, when Wang Yi saw Sister Suehua's white body, his heart was pounding, and the suppressed desire became stronger, almost erupting. Wang Yi quickly took off his clothes and got into Suehua's bed. The two of them slept back to back, but they felt like they were scratched by a cat and it itched like crazy. Wang Yi felt like his body was touching cotton, and a fragrance filled his nose. Wang Yi unconsciously moved his body, wanting to be away from her, otherwise he really couldn't hold it. Suehua felt that her breathing behind her was getting heavier and heavier. It was her first time to come into contact with other men. Her heart was actually full of shyness and throbbing like a young girl. She had to take medicine all year round because of her illness, and she was powerless every time she went to bed. She was also a serious person and never went out to mess around with other girls, but she was now at the age of being as fierce as a wolf, so how could she not have needs? Every time at this time, she felt itchy like being scratched by a cat. Suehua gently bent down and wanted to curl up a little, but she didn't expect to touch Wang Yi all of a sudden, and felt that his whole body was so strong and powerful. She felt like she was electrocuted and wanted him to hug her. Wang Yi was originally trying to control himself by force, but he didn't expect to be touched by Suehua's plump buttocks. Suddenly, the floodgates opened, and the flood of desire poured down. Wang Yi could no longer bear it, turned around and hugged Suehua. He felt Suehua tremble, and he held the solid hill with his calloused hands. His heart was about to jump out, and his heart was pounding. The sound was like beating a drum, one was dry wood, and the other was a raging fire. Chen Suehua wanted it very much, and Wang Yi wanted it very much, and suddenly sparks were struck, shining and ringing in the night. Just when the two wanted to have a big fight, suddenly a cough sounded, breaking the dull sound of the night and extinguishing the burning flames. Wang Yi was so scared that he dared not move. After all, holding someone else's wife, he felt a little guilty, and his hands froze there and dared not move. Sui Hua was also very nervous. She broke out of Wang Yi's arms and buried her face in the pillow, with a face full of shame. What did she do? Sui Hua wanted to cry. Yao Xiaozi coughed for a long time before he stopped, and he hated himself in his heart that he shouldn't disturb their good things. Yao Xia knew what they were doing without even looking. He was already familiar with the smell in the air, but when he thought about Sui Hua's body being touched by others, tears flowed unconsciously. The night was long, and the three of them fell asleep in agony. The next day, the weather was good, and they picked up the hoe and went to the cornfield early in the morning. Sui Hua couldn't do heavy work, and his family's crops were in a hurry. Wang Yi thought he had to shovel quickly, otherwise it would be more difficult to deal with the grass when it grew tall, and it would also affect the harvest. Because of what happened last night, Wang Yi felt full of strength. He finally knew what it felt like to be with a woman. It was so good. Wang Yi waved the hoe and dug hard while recalling what happened last night. He thought, why is Sui Hua's thing so white? Whiter than snow, not to mention whiter than freshly baked steamed buns, and very elastic. It's a blessing to be able to sleep with such a good woman. I have to treat her well. Wang Yi thought beautifully, thinking while living, and he actually had endless energy. 3 ridges were shoveled in the morning. At noon, the sun was hanging in the sky, making people feel hot all over, and sweat dripped down their dark faces. Wang Yi wiped his sweat. Oh no, I forgot to bring food. Wang Yi rested his hoe with one hand, stopped where he was, raised his other hand, and looked into the distance at the mountains in front of him that surrounded Feng'ao village. In the near distance, weeds as high as a person stretched to the front. There were too many, and he didn't know when he could finish shoveling. He was worrying when he suddenly saw a woman's figure in front of him. She was wearing a floral jacket, her slender waist twisted, like a flower floating over. Wang Yi smiled brightly. Sui Hua came to see me. Wang Yi threw down the hoe and ran towards Sui Hua. Sui Hua's body flashed in his mind, and he suddenly felt even hungrier. Wang Yi ran to Sui Hua, took the basket from her hand, smiled innocently, and said, "Sister-in-law, why are you here? Bring you food. You work so hard, how can you not eat? Hey, you look tired and sweaty, wipe it off quickly." Sui Hua took out a handkerchief and gently wiped the sweat off Wang Yi's forehead. Wang Yi smelled a faint fragrance. Sui Hua had been walking for a long time and was sweating. The part of her sister-in-law was soaked, sticking to her body to highlight her exquisite figure. Wang Yi's heart started pounding again when he saw it. In a panic, he couldn't help but hold Sui Hua's hand and stroke it gently with his calloused hand. "Sister-in-law, you are so beautiful. Your hands are not for working. I will support you in the future. You just need to cook for me and don't worry about other things. Let go." Sui Hua blushed in shame, thinking it would be bad for others to see it, but she looked around, her heart sweeter than honey. Sui Hua thought about how she had been married to Xiaozi for so many years, and she had never experienced the happiness between men and women. To be fair, although Xiaozi didn't like to talk much, he was still good to her. He always rushed to do the rough and heavy work, but he was in poor health and couldn't do much. He wouldn't say such words, wouldn't be so proactive, and there was a big age difference between the two. There was nothing to say, and Sui Hua didn't have much interest in him. Now facing a guy who was younger than her, looking at his fiery eyes and his strong body under the light, Sui Hua only felt that something in her heart was growing like wild grass. Seeing Sui Hua blushing, Wang Yi was even more fascinated. After kissing Sui Hua's hand, he opened the basket and said, Don't be afraid, sister-in-law, there is no one around. What delicious food are you going to make for me? It smells so good, I can smell it from a long distance. Wang Yi's words moved Cui Hua's heart. What did Wang Yi say? Eat quickly, it will be cold in a while. Cui Hua's face was flushed, and she had never heard anyone say such love words. Although Cui Hua vaguely remembered that she seemed to have seen it in a book before, it was a long time ago. No matter what kind of environment, no matter how poor people are, they will yearn for love, and Cui Hua is the same. Cui Hua helped Wang Yi open the basket, took out a large scallion pancake, and got a bowl of sweet potato soup from the jar and handed it to Wang Yi. Eat it, you are tired from working, you will have strength only when you are full. When Cui Hua said this, she glanced at Wang Yi shyly, that is the glance. Wang Yi knew in his heart that Cui Hua liked him. Wang Yi felt that he had fallen into honey, and the love that he had never received came like a tide at this time. He picked up the bowl and drank it all in a few gulps. He ate 4 pancakes in a row, and his stomach was extremely satisfied. Sister-in-law, the pancakes you made are so delicious, better than those bought outside. Wang Yi looked at Cui Hua gently, and Cui Hua's heart was thumping. Cui Hua smiled shyly, if you like it, sister-in-law will make it for you often in the future. Seeing that the woman he had always secretly loved was so gentle to him, Wang Yi didn't know what to say. Seeing the cake, he suddenly had an idea. He picked up a cake and stuffed it into Cui Hua's mouth. Sister-in-law, haven't you eaten yet? Let's eat together. Cui Hua nodded and ate the cake happily. The two sat in the fields and had lunch together. The clouds were floating in the sky and the birds were singing in the woods. Chen Cui Hua suddenly found that Feng'ao village was so beautiful. It turned out that life was not always bitter, but also sweet. And she was about to usher in a new moment. Although the situation was a bit exaggerated, Chen Cui Hua felt that it was not unacceptable. He remembered what he had read in a book before, which was to treat the unfairness of life with a grateful heart. Life will be rewarding. He has been doing this all the time, hoping that there will be a day of reward, but he didn't expect that day to come. It's now. Chen Cui Hua was in a good mood and simply lay down in the grass, looking at the vast sky, and her mood became better. It was just an inadvertent move, but in Wang Yi's eyes, it was a different kind of temptation. The breeze blew, and 2 beautiful hills stood, rolling, just like the mountains around Feng'ao village. Wang Yi felt that he was about to suffocate, this beauty was suffocating. The charm on Chen Cui Hua's face was different from vulgarity, but a kind of seductive, but pure beauty. That kind of beauty does not lie in publicity, but in the temperament and laziness emanating from the bottom of the heart. This is something Wang Yi has never seen before, and it is also rare in the village. Wang Yi could no longer control himself, and threw himself on Cui Hua, kissing her mouth madly. Cui Hua pushed him away in vain twice, and was completely conquered, and the dry wood and fire ignited at once. Finally, Wang Yi stopped, gazed into Chen Cui Hua's eyes gently, and kissed her face, her nose, her eyes, and every part of her gently again. What are you doing? Chen Cui Hua smiled like a girl, and she forgot how long she hadn't smiled like this. The burden of life weighed on a young woman, leaving her with nothing but fatigue and numbness. And Wang Yi used the most primitive method to open her heart, and gave her the purest happiness. Chen Cui Hua enjoyed this happiness. Sister Cui Hua, you are so beautiful, I fell in love with you a long time ago. Do you know that every time you go to do farm work, I follow you quietly, just from a long distance so that you won't notice me. Every time I sleep, your figure appears in my dreams. Wang Yi's words surprised Chen Cui Hua. I said that I always felt that someone was secretly following me from behind, but every time I looked back, there was no one. It turned out to be you. Why are you following me? I just want to protect you. He. Wang Yi's honest smile made Chen Cui Hua's eyes moist. She was moved and felt the hot passion of the man. Chen Suehua's desire burned all over her body, and she immediately became obedient. She guided Wang Yi into the secret realm like a guide. Wang Yi's mind was blank, and the excitement was beyond words. In this vast world, emotions are spreading infinitely. Sister Suehua, it's so comfortable, Wang Yi almost cried, just call me Suehua, this kind of happiness is really unprecedented. Suehua. Wang Yi called her name again and again. When the two were immersed in happiness, a cute boy in the distance was still there in a daze. What is Mom doing with that accomplice? Why doesn't she respond even after I called her several times? Is she being bullied? Otherwise, why is Mom yelling? Faizi picked up a stone angrily and threw it over. It landed in the cornfield, and then a man's scream was heard. Faizi was so scared that he turned around and ran to the yard. Dad, this is bad. You can't yell if the accomplice is bullying Mom. You should call Uncle Wang. How could he bully your mom? Yao Xiaozi wondered. He was pressing on Mom. Mom was in so much pain. She kept yelling, but he didn't let go. He was really bad. Faizi said and imitated. Dad turned pale and couldn't help coughing. He even coughed up a mouthful of bloody phlegm. Faizi quickly cleaned it up and fetched another bowl of water. Dad drank the water and gently patted his father's back. After taking a sip of water, Yao Xiaozi felt much more comfortable, but he always felt like there was a stone pressing on his chest, which made him feel suffocated. Yao Xiaozi felt very distressed when he thought that if something happened to him, his wife and son would belong to someone else, but what could he do? He hugged his son tightly, his withered hair rubbing against his son's face, trembling, and finally couldn't control his tears. Although the cry was low, it was full of misery and sadness. Faizi was scared. He was frightened by his father's appearance. He couldn't understand what was going on. He just felt that it must be the gangster, who was bad to his mother, and his father couldn't do anything about it. Faizi hugged his father and said bitterly, Dad, don't cry, I will avenge you. When Faizi spoke, there was a sinister look in his eyes, which was very inconsistent with his age. It was as frightening as a wolf, but his father didn't see it. He didn't know how much mental burden his words would bring to his son, and he didn't think that this seed of hatred would harm others. Faizi couldn't understand why his family was doing well, so why did they find a gangster? And since that guy came, his father's illness seemed to be worse. She was so angry that she cried like this. To be honest, my family had made good plans with that gangster, leaving all the delicious food and drinks for him, but I didn't expect him to be ungrateful. Okay, if you dare to repay kindness with enmity, I will make you pay for it. Faizi made up his mind. When Suehua came back, there were still 2 blushes on her face, but her heart was as sweet as honey. She was a little flustered when she walked, and felt like she had exerted a lot of effort, but her whole body was very comfortable. Suehua entered the house and looked at Yao Xiaozi lying on the kang and said, Where's Faizi? She hadn't eaten yet. Faizi went outside to play with other children. Yao Xiaozi's voice was low. Seeing Suehua's happy look, he couldn't get excited. Who made him get this disease? He couldn't support this family, so he couldn't blame anyone. I heard that a working group came to the village to specifically investigate the work styles of men and women, and several people were caught in the neighboring village. Yao Xiaozi said seemingly casually. After hearing what Yao Xiaozi said, Suehua looked at him guiltily, thinking that he knew it, but then she thought that shouldn't be the case. What could he know while lying in the pit? So she considerately filled a bowl of water and brought it to Yao Xiaozi's side, saying, I know, you drink some water. I'm not thirsty. Go do your thing. Don't worry about me. Yao Xiaozi turned around after saying that, saying, You go to sleep, I'll go wash clothes. Suehua put all the dirty clothes in a basin and went to the river. There were already several women washing clothes by the river, and when they saw Suehua coming, they giggled. Suehua, are you washing clothes? Several aunts came, and Suehua greeted them with a smile. Erwa's mother came to Suehua and said with a smile, Feizi's mother, are you good at pulling the band? Do you still need to ask? Her face looked as rosy as if she had just got married. Suehua, tell me how good you are at pulling the band. Seeing how tall and big he is, his thing must be big too. Is it as big as a donkey's? Bah, why don't you say it's as big as a horse's? Several women stopped washing clothes and came to Suehua to chatter. Suehua didn't say anything at first. After washing the clothes, she stood up with the basin and laughed and scolded, saying that she was still not a good person at her age. Let your sons and grandsons listen. If you want one, go find one. Suehua said something to them. When she first arrived in Feng'ao village, Suehua was not used to the dirty jokes these old women said. After hearing them too much, she felt that it was just like that. It was okay to say a few words to them, just to pass the time. After all, life in Feng'ao village was peaceful but hard. The dullness and boredom made these old women, who had never seen the world, very depressed, so they had to tell some dirty jokes to kill time. Suehua has a good personality and treats people honestly, so she is likable. How old is she and still shy? Goshing's mother smiled and said that she envied Suehua the most. No matter who she was, she would treat her as a treasure. There is no way, who can blame him for his good temperament, no one can learn it. Goshing's mother could only watch him leave with jealousy. Recently, a working group came to the village, and they want to catch men and women cooking. Everyone should be careful, if they are caught in the act, it will be over. Goshing's mother spoke the loudest, let them catch them. Suehua said while walking back quickly. She was in a happy mood, and no one could destroy this happiness. Time flows like a river. Soon the sun went down. Suehua cooked and mended clothes in the yard, and then waited for Wangi and Feizi to come home. Soon Feizi came back. Mother, I'm back. Feizi jumped and ran to Suehua, and threw himself into Suehua's arms. Suehua stroked her son's head, looked at his handsome face, and said lovingly, Feizi, you are getting more and more beautiful, don't forget me when you get married in the future. Although it was a joke, Feizi raised his head and said seriously, Mother, I will stay with you until I get married. Silly son, how can this be? You have to find someone to serve you, so I'll find a good woman. Feizi asked seriously, is it like mother? Chen Suehua started joking. Feizi stopped talking, where did you go to play? You are so dirty. Suehua reached out to pat the dust off her son's clothes. Goshing and I went to play at the entrance of the village. Someone posted a slogan saying that they would catch the behavior of men and women. What is the behavior of men and women? Feizi asked curiously, it means men and women. Hey, why are you asking this as a kid? Go and eat quickly. Suehua blushed as she spoke. Feizi reluctantly went to the house to eat, his mind still full of what happened just now. Soon Wangi came back, pinched Suehua, and went into the house to eat. Suehua said apologetically, pretending to slap Feizi's bear but twice, but she didn't really slap him hard. Feizi hid in the quilt and laughed secretly, he, you stinky accomplice, let me see how I will deal with you. The next day, Suehua went to deliver food to Wangi again. She saw that the grass in the field had been almost removed and the seeds had been buried in the soil. They would grow out in a few months. So she excitedly said to Wangi, we have earned a lot of work points this year. We should be able to eat enough during the winter. Of course, I will catch you a silly roe deer by then. That thing is so delicious. Is that true? Suehua's eyes lit up. In the past, the family could only rely on her for work points. She earned little and got little. It was not enough for the whole family, not enough for food, not to mention meat. Suehua looked at Wangi gratefully, thinking that fortunately he was there, so that the whole family could eat enough. Otherwise, how would they survive in winter? Seeing Wang Yi straighten up, Suehua hurriedly took a handkerchief to wipe his sweat. Wang Yi looked at Suehua's beautiful face and plump figure, and he had bad thoughts in his heart. He looked around and smiled and put his hand on Suehua. Sister Suehua, it feels so good. Wang Yi squeezed and squeezed while speaking, and he also leaned over. Suehua blushed with shame, and looked around worriedly and said, "Be careful, a working group will come to the village soon." "What is a working group?" Wang Yi said in a daze, and then his movements became bigger. Suehua felt her whole body softened, and she couldn't help but hum, "Sister Suehua, you missed me, right?" Wang Yi smiled evilly, "Don't." Suehua felt her whole body tremble, and whispered, "Don't be like this, can we talk about it at night? I'm really afraid of being seen. That smoker coughed again at night, and I couldn't do anything. How can we change places? It's easy to be seen here, let's go over there." Wang Yi pulled Sister Suehua to a tree and began to release his desire. "Sister Suehua, turn around and hold the tree." Suehua just got into position and felt a chill down there. Wang Yi pulled her pants down to her heels, and she blushed with shame. "Yi, people will see it." He, where is the person?" As soon as Wang Yi finished speaking, Suehua felt her whole body tremble, and she couldn't help but shout, sister-in-law, are you comfortable?" Wang Yi was a little nervous. Suehua said shyly. When the two were having fun, they suddenly heard a shout. "What are you doing?" The two were shocked, especially Suehua, who covered her face and pulled up her pants. Wang Yi looked back and saw several people wearing red armbands surrounding them. The village party secretary was also here. "What are you doing?" The leader, a man wearing glasses, said coldly, "Me, us." Wang Yi said incoherently, "Take them away." After the man finished speaking, the people around took Wang Yi and Chen Suehua back, and criticized them in front of the whole village, as an example. Later, they both jumped into the river and died. Yao Xiaozi was also angry to death. Only Feizi was left at home. He was adopted by a distant relative, and changed his surname to Zheng. The village party secretary was also implicated in matchmaking and hanged himself. This is the story of ganging up in Fengar-Ao village. Does Feizi regret it? Of course, he regrets it every day. If he hadn't reported it at the beginning, he might have been able to keep his family and not implicate innocent people, but what's the use of regret? Everything is gone, it's been raining, I don't know how long it will stop. Well, today's story ends here, thank you for listening. If you like my show, please subscribe.